Hi, and welcome to Jules Voto's Photo Focus. This is going to be the first of a video I intend on making every month, every third Wednesday, and the theme is Vintage Lens, Modern Camera. And in this first edition, I'm going to be talking about Nikon's Nikkor-H 28mm 3.5 lens. This lens originally hit the market in March of 1960. It was Nikon's first 28mm for the Nikon F, which had come out a year earlier. I'm just going to quickly go through the history of this lens and just talk about why I think these vintage lenses are so great on mirrorless cameras. So again, this lens was introduced in 1960. The first version had a chrome barrel, as you can see, and it was marked in centimeters, 2.8 centimeters. This lens weighs 7 3/4 ounces. It's 215 grams and has stops from 3.5 to 16. It will focus down to 2 feet. It's very light, compact, has a large front element and a very small rear element. Takes 52mm filters like most Nikon manual focus lenses below 200mm. It accepts the HN2 screw-in lens shade. Okay. Oh, also you will notice on this lens it has a milled aperture ring. Okay. In 1967, and with Nikon, along the way, there were many cosmetic as well as some optical changes on many of their lenses. So on this lens in 1967, they went with a black barrel. By this time, it was marked in millimeters on the barrel. Same focus distance down to 2 feet. But it had a scalloped aperture ring, which is much easier to grip and to turn. In 1973, this lens became multi-coated. So it would say on the barrel, Nikkor-H C, the C indicating the multi-coating. Okay, this is the lens that we're going to look at some images with. I shot this lens on my Nikon Z6. This is this lens dates from approximately 1972. This is the lens we're going to see some images with shortly. In 1975, they came out what's called the K version. That, of course, was multi-coated. All the lenses from 73 on were multi-coated, and it had a rubber focusing ring. Now, they also changed it a little bit at this time. They gave it 7 aperture blades, where the previous version, the original version, had 5 aperture blades. They also shortened the minimum focusing distance. It went from 2 to 1 foot, and the f-stops went up to 22 instead of 16, and it weighed a little bit more, 230 grams. In 1977, they went with the AI version, okay, which was a new optical design. It had 6 elements in 6 groups still, but the front element was smaller and the rear element was larger. And the information on the lens, whereas with this version it was around the barrel, it was in the more conventional spot on the filter ring. Okay, and then finally in 1981 they came out with the AIS version, and the lens was finally discontinued in 1983. Because they had come out with, in 1974, they had come out with a 28mm 2.8 version. Okay, so why do I like this lens? Why do I think it's good on mirrorless cameras? I just love manual focus lenses on mirrorless cameras. And the reason is, you could use so many different lenses. You could not only use Nikon lenses on a Nikon camera, you could use Minolta lenses, Canon lenses, Pentax lenses, and the list goes on. They're very adaptable to mirrorless cameras. But this particular lens it's not a focal length when I was shooting film that I really used that much, because I preferred having both a 35 and a 24. But the 28 is a great compromise. If you only want to carry one wide angle, I think it's good for landscapes, it's good for group photography. This is a great lens for street photography. You just mount it on your camera, set the focus to 10 feet, your aperture to f8, and everything from 5 feet to approximately 220 feet will be in acceptable focus. So you could just raise the camera to your eye and shoot. Because of the 3.5 aperture, it's not very bright in a film camera. It doesn't give you a very bright view, and is a little difficult to focus unless you have a split image screen. But on a mirrorless camera, you could zoom in to 100%. You have focus peaking, so it makes focusing much more accurate. And because of its lightweight, its compact size, it's great. It's a great lens to travel with. You can just put it in your pocket. I think it's a great little lens. These lenses are extremely well made. You know, Nikon had a 28mm 2.0, which was a much more expensive lens, but the build quality was the same. All metal construction, as you could see. This lens dates from 1972, as I said earlier. It's 50 years old, and the focus is smooth as can be. Now, this was cared for. I picked this up used on eBay. This lens was obviously cared for. It's in great shape, but no oil on the aperture blades. Again, it focuses so smoothly. It's just a great little lens. Now, I only have two versions of this lens. An early version, approximately 1962, with the silver barrel, and a version from 1971. This one is actually dates from about 72, with the black barrel. Okay, and as I said earlier, in 73 they came out with multi-coating, and this lens was the one right before multi-coating. Really, the only difference you will notice is instead of Nikkor-H, it'll say Nikkor-HC. Okay, and then in 1975 they came out with the K version. Again, I don't have that version, but just to show you what they look like, the K version has a rubber focusing ring like this. Okay, this is a 52.0, but it does have this type of rubber focusing ring, and also the aperture ring is different as well. Okay, also the information on the lens, whereas with the older versions it's around the barrel, on the K version it's similar to this zoom Nikkor. It's around the front of the lens, around on the focus ring. Okay, and then the AI version, this is actually an AIS version, but on the AI version the information is on the retaining ring inside the threads of the for your filter. Okay, and then the AIS version, the easy way to tell an AIS version is the minimum aperture will be in amber. Okay, like this. Okay, but again, this is a 51.4, but all the AIS versions, the minimum aperture is always in orange, both here and in the smaller numbers down here. If you're looking to pick up one of these lenses, there's a ton of them on eBay. Tens of thousands of these were made. The prices vary greatly depending on condition, but you should be able to find one. And you know, even if you use a Sony or a Canon or other mirrorless cameras, there's adapters available to use these lenses. Now, what about the sharpness of this lens? It's adequately sharp. I shot it wide open at f8 and at f11, and I was very pleased with the sharpness of this lens. I didn't compare it to more modern lens, you know, such as my 24-70 2.8 Nikon Z zoom, which is an extremely sharp lens, but I like the results with this lens, and I like using these vintage lenses on the mirrorless camera set for black and white mode. And that's another great thing I love about mirrorless is if you set it for black and white, your view through the electronic viewfinder is in black and white. That's something we never had with film cameras. So my next video in this series, which again will be coming out on the third Wednesday of every month, the next one will be on the Pentax Super Takumar 35mm 3.5. If you think this lens is compact, wait till you see that Takumar 35 3.5. It is tiny. So I took a walk with this lens on my Z6 around Merchantville, New Jersey, and shot some architecture. So let's go look at some pictures. Now this shot of the cat was shot at 5.6 at its minimum focusing distance of 2 feet with the 28-3.5 at an ISO 6400. And this was cropped considerably. Now this is a non-AI lens, and non-AI lens works perfectly with the F to Z adapter on the Nikon Z cameras. The shot here of the glasses was at approximately 2 feet at f8 at ISO of 1600. And then I went outside, took my walk around Merchantville. This is just the side of a building, and you can see the sharpness is pretty good with this lens, and this was at f8. Fence was shot at f8 as well, and you can see the considerable depth of field with this lens. Just a building at f8 again. Again, I'm very happy with the sharpness of this lens. I then switched to black and white, and this is at f11 with just some shadows on the ground. And there is an old train station in Merchantville, which is now a restaurant. And I thought that looked really good in black and white. I really like shooting black and white with these old lenses. Back in the day when I was shooting these on film, I was mostly shooting black and white. So here's one where I wanted to see the difference between black and white and color with this lens. This one is actually at f8. You can see the sharpness. Look at the stucco, the detail in it. And I then decided to change to color, and I shot this at 3.5. And the focus was on that window in the foreground here, but look at the sharpness on the stucco. So even wide open, this lens has some good sharpness. Church was shot at f8, and went back to color for this with that red door, and needed to shoot color. Now on this one, the bush was about 9 feet away, and that's where the focus point was. I focused on that bush, and at f11, and you could see good sharpness. That sharpness extends back to the church door. This one was a sign that was upside down. So I don't know why the sign was upside down, but this was shot at f11. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And remember to look for my new vintage lens modern camera video every third Wednesday.